The following story comes from my childhood and it still gives me chills today. It was December and my family was on vacation in the middle of nowhere outside of Malmö, Sweden. I was 9 years old and I was a very shy kid. For most of my childhood I would follow the lead of my older brothers. My older brothers Eric and John mostly hang out with each other because they are closer in age than I am to them. My little brother Carl was only 4, so he was constantly with my parents. My dad was a very kind man, even though he had a big wart in the middle of his nose that made it impossible not to stare. But if you stared too long, he got annoyed. My father gave us all money for candy or for activities like playing miniature golf and things like that. On one occasion, I wandered around the neighborhood by myself. I walked around the big cement road that wrapped around the whole area and passed some families playing cricket and other sports. My parents assumed I was with my older brothers, but I was not. I started exploring the inside of the activity hall building and found the candy store that my dad told me about. I looked around the shop. In one corner of the room was a large glass bowl with a square glass. There was a fog on the glass and a special type of glass that was hard to see through. I went a little closer to look through it better. Then I saw a pale humanoid figure staring right back at me. I looked at it for about 10 seconds. Suddenly the figure started grinning at me. I quickly backed up and was about to tear down a shelf of magazines behind me. When I looked at the glass again, I couldn't see the figure anymore. I got scared and thoughts ran through my head. Maybe it was a Halloween decoration, but how could it just disappear like that? And if it was a decoration, it was certainly doing its job of scaring me. I quickly went back to my parents and told them what I've seen, and I'm sure they thought it was strange. That evening when we were all eating dinner together in the dining room, I noticed a man sitting alone at one of the nearby tables. He slowly turned his gaze towards me and I recognized him. It was the same figure I had seen in the glass bowl. I was absolutely convinced of it, and my body froze with fear. He started to smile at me. Suddenly the power went out and everything went black in the dining room. I grabbed my dad's arm firmly and whispered that I was scared. He reassured me that the power would be back on soon. Then there was a metallic clicking sound and a laugh that made my blood run cold. My father shouted, "Don't look up!" The sound of a hammer hitting a piece of meat echoed in the dining room. Then I suddenly heard my mother say, "You guys ready to go home?" I woke up in the back seat of our car and realized that what happened in the dining room had only been a dream. But I know what I saw in the candy store, and it wasn't a dream. As we drove away and were finally on our way home, I thought, I hope I'll never ever visit this place again. In the past, I have dealt with a very bad stalker situation as a male when I was 22. I had met this girl, Jane, who was 18. I actually contacted her on Instagram, and it went from there. I was surprised she answered me because she had a lot of followers. We only hung out a few times. Nevertheless, she seemed extremely obsessive quickly, which was a major turn-off for me. As a result, I started hanging out with other girls, and as I would get new followers, Jane actually texted me angrily about it, as if we were dating. It was pretty comical at first. It didn't really bother me. I started talking to this girl Anne. As our second date, we decided to go to Dave and Buster's. We drank a little before we went, so when we got there, we already kind of had a buzz going. We were playing the basketball game known as Connect 4 when my phone kept vibrating in my pocket. I checked my phone and I got 3 texts from a random number and a picture. The picture was of Jane in front of a basketball game. The text said, "No way on the Dave and Buster's too." When I went to text back, I saw the text didn't come from another iPhone, so it most likely meant it was sent from some kind of a burner number app. I looked in the general direction of where the picture was taken. My first assumption was that it would be Jane, but she wasn't there. I replied, "Who is this?" Nevertheless, there was no response. When I showed Anne the text and picture, she agreed that it had to be a joke from a friend. We went across the place to a different game, and it happened again a few minutes into playing this new game. I got a picture texted to me with both of our backs turned to the person taking the picture, who was probably about 30 feet away from us at the time. However, it appeared blurry, as if it was zoomed in. They texted this time saying, My favorite game, can you beat my high score? I told Jane to wait there as I walked to the area where the picture was taken from. I looked around expecting to see Jane, or more honestly, anyone I knew. But it was just a group of strangers playing a lottery ticket game. I responded to the text once more, asking who this was. Then I texted a screenshot of the pictures to a few of my close friends, first asking if it was any of them. I believed them when they said it wasn't. Anybody may have been there, but I didn't see Jane there. The individual who replied to my SMS said, "Do you know who it is?" I said maybe we should go to Anne, and she agreed. We left the building and went to my car. I got a text from the number saying, "Why did you leave?" I didn't respond. After continuing our date at a local bar, Anne really drove home with me. When I received a text from the same number again with a photo, Anne and I were in my room. "What a beautiful house. Come outdoors," read the writing, and my residence was shown in the image. This was no longer a joke, it was a direct menace, until I heard a window smash downstairs. I wasn't sure if whoever it was still outside my house or not. I ran downstairs and out the front door after grabbing my revolver from my nightstand. I spotted a big man in front of the house with a large metal baseball bat. He was acting tough until he saw my gun, at which point he dropped the bat and raised his hands. I shouted to Anne inside to dial 911. As I aimed my revolver at the man. He was playing a ticket jackpot game at the Dave & Buster's when I recognized him as one of the men there. Although now that I think about it, he was probably simply acting like he was playing. I asked of him who he was and his motive for following me. He acknowledged right away that he was Jane's brother and that he was essentially defending his sister. I shouted at him, telling him that all I had done was stop responding to her. He insisted that Jane told him I hit her. But I yelled at him and told him that it was all nonsense. I just spent a couple times with her before losing interest. I even went so far as to call them both batshit nuts, to which he replied, "Please don't phone the police." But Anne did, and when they arrived, it was a simple matter of making an arrest. Jane also received a video I sent her of the event, which was the sweetest kind of revenge possible. She didn't even respond, but I know she saw it. The window was obviously paid for by Jane's insane brother, and neither of them had tried to approach me since.